Morgan Brennan is in Washington with the Secretary of the Navy, Carlos del Toro. Morgan?
Kelly, thank you so much. And yes, I am joined by the Secretary of the U.S. Navy, Carlos del Toro. Secretary del Toro, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me here today, and to all your viewers here on the exchange this afternoon.
So I do want to start with Russia, Ukraine, and the events that we see unfolding in real time on the ground in Eastern Europe. This is largely seen, at least right now, as a land-based conflict as it currently exists. But how is the Navy supporting the efforts in the region?
Well, very much so. And we actually have the Harry S. Truman, for example, out in the Mediterranean with its battle group. We also have additional vessels that have been deployed to the Mediterranean to prevent the worst from happening and to keep an eye on the Russian fleet and everything else that's going on, in addition to what's happening on the ground as well, too.
From your vantage point, how would you assess the situation?
Well, it's very tragic. It's very concerning, obviously. I mean, the invasion of Ukraine is a violation of human rights. It's a violation of the Ukrainian people, and the suffering that Putin has put them under is really significant. And as a Cuban refugee myself who left a communist country, this is personally painful to see this unfold. And one would hope that in the remaining days and weeks that perhaps we can come to a diplomatic solution that would play well for the people of Ukraine.
I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Secretary Wormuth of the Army earlier today on the network, and that is, do we know yet how this ends?
I don't think we do. Unfortunately, some of it relies on the actions that President Putin will take over the course of the next few days and weeks and perhaps even months. And it's very difficult, and one would hope that President Putin would come to his senses and try to achieve a more diplomatic solution to the challenge that he faces ahead of him.
So one of the things you talked about here at the McAleese conference is the fact that a key purpose of the Navy is to ensure the safe and secure passage of commerce on global waterways. We're seeing sanctions implemented. We're seeing trade flows potentially interrupted or diverted right now. How does this affect that process?
Well, that's incredibly important. For as long as we've had a Navy, the Navy's one of the chief responsibilities has to ensure that the free lanes of communication stay open for global trade around the world. And so much of our economy depends on that free exchange of trade on the oceans themselves and under the oceans through fiber optic cables. And it's incredibly important that we maintain that stability, and the Navy plays a very important role in that.
And we're talking about Russia and Ukraine and certainly the conflict that is forefront right now. But another thing that is emerging from this conference, and that you certainly spoke about in your remarks here too, is the fact that, yes, Russia is an issue, Russia is a threat, but longer term, China remains perhaps the larger threat, the so-called pacing challenge. How do you see that?
Well, that's exactly right. And China very much is the pacing threat. And certainly the threat that they present in terms of their desires with regards to Taiwan is equally important to the future stability of not just the United States economy. Taiwan is our 9th largest trading partner, for example, but I would argue the entire global economy. As you all know, apart from the moral aspect of being able to preserve democracy in Taiwan, the fact that, if we were to lose Taiwan, 90% of the chips globally are made in Taiwan. So it does present a significant threat to our global economy in so many different ways. And for that, many other reasons, China is the pacing threat that we face.
Can the Navy deter a potential invasion of Taiwan by China?
I very much think we can. And, we're investing in upgrading and modernizing our Navy in many different ways, modernizing our submarines and our surface fleet and our unmanned technology. These are major investments that we're making in order to be able to deter China in every possible way from trying to do what it wants to do.